Today, Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus are separate countries, but they all emerged out of the same embers burning since antiquity. They are land crisscrossed by long rivers, stretching north into dense forests themselves punctured by marshes and clearings, and south towards the flat, dry steppes. These expansive lands became the homes to many empires, both foreign and local, who fought and coexisted with its people and adapted to its terrain, and used it for better and for worse. This video is the first in a 4-part series diving into the rise of the Tsardom of Russia and the institutions and events that characterized it from medieval times to the 17th century. Part 1. Slavs, Vikings, Nomads. Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus have been home to a group of people called the Slavs since ancient times. The Slavs first appeared in the historical record during the rule of the Eastern Roman Emperor Justinian I. In 626, the Slavs and the Avars, a Mongol people, tried but failed to attack Constantinople. Over the next 200 years, the Slavs settled in the Balkans and moved into Central Europe and the areas south and east of the Baltic Sea. The Slavs originally lived between the Bug, Pripyat, and Dnieper rivers in what is now Ukraine. They were farmers and livestock raisers, using advanced Roman farming methods like crop rotation and plowing. To the south of central Russia's forests and plains lies a vast grassland, the western edge of a great steppe that stretches thousands of miles east. People in the steppe adapted to the harsh climate and adopted horses as transportation, a companion, a tool, and a weapon. By the 8th century, the mercantile Khazar Khaganate, a multi-ethnic group led by Turkic aristocrats who converted to Judaism, ruled these steppes of modern southern Russia. They protected Slavic farmers. Another Turkic group, the Bulgars, had a Khaganate in the middle Volga region, north of and subservient to the Khazars, called Volga Bulgaria. In the 9th century, warrior merchants from Scandinavia traveled south along Eastern Europe's rivers to control trade routes. These Vikings, called Varangians by the Slavs, came from country kingdoms with limited farmland. The Vikings in general were spreading across Europe, seeking land, trade, loot, slaves, or military glory. The Norsemen who settled in Russia adopted the name Rus, meaning to row. They traded furs for silver at Bulgar markets and were interested in a trade route from the Gulf of Finland and Lake Ladoga to the Black Sea. The rapids at the Dnieper River were a challenge, but once past them, the Rus accessed the rich markets in Constantinople. The Slavs initially got along with the Norsemen, but later invited the Varangians to rule over them to bring order. According to the Chronicle of Past Times, as time went on, it became apparent that there was no law among them, but tribe rose against tribe. Discord thus ensued among them, and they began to war against one another. They said to themselves, "Let us seek a prince who may rule over us and judge us according to the law." Accordingly, they went overseas to the Varangian Russes, and they said to the people of Rus, "Our whole land is great and rich, but there is no order in it. Come to rule and reign over us." The Vikings began to establish fortified trading settlements along the river route from Scandinavia to Constantinople, with key towns near Lake Ladoga and along the river Volkhov, like Novgorod, first ruled by Varangian chieftain Rurik. When Rurik died in 879, he appointed Oleg to rule his kingdom as his son Igor was still a child. He expanded his kingdom south and conquered the town of Kiev, proclaiming it to be the mother of all Rus cities. Kiev's location as a secure trading hub allowed for easy access to the riches of Constantinople and the Arab world. From Kiev, he expanded the Rus road towards Moscow, Suzdal, and Chernigov, with the use of his retinues, or drusina. By the mid-9th century, the loose federation of Rus states were already a formidable force, even raiding, though unsuccessfully, Constantinople in 860. This led to the Rus getting permanent trading rights with the Byzantines in 907. with its contents fully formalized in another treaty in 911. In the meantime, the Varangians were intermarrying with the Slavs, blending their cultures. Under the Rus, agriculture and trade grew, but so did wealth and power differences. Princes gave warriors, called boyars, the right to collect tribute from communities. Local assemblies, called deveche, made decisions like electing their rulers and handled military matters. These assemblies included all free adult men, usually landowners or small business owners, but excluded slaves, women, and likely immigrants. The deveche could be called by the prince or its members by ringing church bells. Meetings were held in the market square, in front of the church, or outside the town walls. The richest or most influential people often dominated these chaotic meetings, sometimes leading to conflict. Much like the ancient Greek city-states, the principal cities of the Rus fragmented. Satellite towns gained autonomy, then independence, by inviting Rurik's descendants to rule. The Rurikovich princes usually accepted these invitations. After all, who wouldn't? By the start of the 11th century, the Kievan Rus truly became a major power, obviously centered on Kiev. Prince Igor ruled from 913 to 945, and led a campaign against Constantinople in 941. A treaty in 944 ended the war, but it was less favorable than the earlier 911 treaty. Igor was killed in 945 by the Drevlians, leaving his widow, Olga, to rule as their son, Sviatoslav, was still young. Olga ruled from 945 to 962. She took revenge on the Drevlian tribe and converted to Christianity. She visited Constantinople in 957 and became a saint. However, her son did not convert. Prince Sviatoslav ruled from 962 to 972 and expanded the Kievan Rus. He led bold campaigns, including sacking the Khazar capital, Intil, in 968. This weakened the Khazars, making way for another nomadic group, the hostile Pechenegs, to take power. In 968, the Byzantines invited Sviatoslav to raid Bulgaria. Sviatoslav succeeded, but had to return to defend Kiev from the Pechenegs. Later, the Byzantines turned on the Rus, leading to a bitter war. Sviatoslav made peace in 972, but was killed by the Pechenegs on his way home. Supposedly, a Pecheneg prince afterward made himself a drinking cup out of Sviatoslav's skull. After Olga died in 969, Sviatoslav left Kiev to his eldest son Yaropolk, sent his second son Oleg to govern the Drevlian, and his third son Vladimir to manage Novgorod. A civil war followed Sviatoslav's death. Vladimir defeated Yaropolk with mercenaries and became the ruler of Kiev in 978. Vladimir considered adopting a new faith to legitimize his rule and unite the Rus. He found Christianity beneficial because it had a written system for law and order, and promoted closer ties with Byzantium. Catholicism would allow for stronger ties with Western Europe, but Vladimir found it to be without beauty. Islam would allow for better connections with the Arab world, but it prohibited drinking alcohol. Vladimir was, however, impressed by the beauty of Orthodox Christianity. We knew not whether we were in heaven or on earth. He chose it and commanded the people of Kiev to be baptized at the Dnieper. Whoever does not turn up at the river tomorrow, be he rich, poor, lowly, or slave, he shall be my enemy. Byzantine craftsmen and clergymen came to Russia to build churches and spread Orthodox Christianity. It soon became a central part of Slavic culture, with a strong emphasis on liturgy and iconography. As I've talked about before, much of the interactions that the Rus and East Slavs had with other people were had with their neighbors to the south and east in the steppe regions around the Black and Caspian Seas, and along the Volga River. They often fought with these nomadic neighbors, but also intermingled with them. After the Khazar Khaganate fell at the hands of Sviatoslav, the Volga Bulgars became independent. They were Muslims and traded with Kievan Rus. Although there were occasional conflicts, trade relations were significant. The Rus Principality of Vladimir Suzdal cooperated with the Volga Bulgars to bringing silk and spices from East Asia into Russia. The Pechenegs were the first significant Turkic pastoralists to challenge the Kievan Rus, posing a threat to Kiev multiple times. Vladimir died in 1015, and his sons went to war against each other to see who would rule Kiev. Yaroslav marched on the city during a time when the Pechenegs were raiding the principality and defeated them so soundly that they were no longer a threat. As compensation for the lost territories, the Pechenegs began attacking the Byzantines. However, the Byzantines had the help of a new nomadic people, the Kipchaks. By 1091, the Pechenegs were reduced to a rump state along the Danube. The Kipchaks became the main nomadic power in the steppe. They were skilled warriors and often raided Kievan territories during times of civil war between the Russian princes. Despite frequent raiding and counter-raiding, neither side could decisively conquer the other's territory. The Kipchaks could raid deeply into Russian lands, but lacked the ability to hold these territories due to their nomadic lifestyle. Similarly, the Rus lacked the expertise to rule the steppe, as manning and supplying their forts so far away would be too difficult. Trade along the Dnieper River declined due to Italian trade dominance in the Byzantine Empire and Kipchak raids. Trade along the Volga flourished, however, benefiting Novgorod and Vladimir Suzdal. After Yaroslav's death in 1054, the Kievan Rus began to fall apart and fracture, though slowly, due to fighting and familiarity among his relatives, worsened by attacks by the Kipchaks. Despite occasional attempts at unity, internal conflicts persisted among the princes, hindering any coordinated defense against the Kipchaks. Kiev faced internal turmoil due to growing debt issues, which led to social unrest. By the 1130s, the Kievan Rus fragmented further as individual principalities asserted independence. This fragmentation continued into the 13th century, eroding all hopes of a unified state. Land ownership replaced trade routes as a source of power and wealth, turning society more feudal. Ultimately, the Kievan Rus' internal divisions would be its downfall from external pressures. Part 2. The Mongol Hordes. Far, far east to the crumbling Kievan state lay yet another nomadic people, occupying the plateaus to the north of China. They were always a consistent threat to the rich and powerful Chinese Empire. One of these nomadic peoples were the Mongols. As they were a threat, the Chinese kept a close eye on the Mongols, observing that they are preoccupied exclusively with their flocks. They roam and they possess neither towns nor walls, neither writing nor books. They conclude all agreements orally. From childhood, they practice fighting and shooting arrows, and thus they acquire courage necessary to pillage and war. As long as they hope for success, they move back and forth. Where there is no hope, a timely flight is not considered reprehensible. Religious rites and legal institutions they know not. They all feed on the meat of the animals which they kill, and they dress in their hides and furs. The strongest among them grab the fattest pieces. The old men, on the other hand, eat and drink what is left. They respect only the bravest. Old age and feebleness are held in contempt. In 1162, a young boy named Temujin was born to a Mongol chief. When he was 8, his father was poisoned by the Tartars. Temujin allied Togrul, the leader of the Kirid tribe. With the Qin Empire, based in North China, they beat the Tartars. Later, Temujin and the Kirid fought each other. In 1203, Temujin beat the Kirid and took over the tribe. In 1204, he defeated the Naiman tribe to his west. By 1206, Temujin ruled all of Mongolia. He called a council meeting, called the Kurultai, and was given the name Chinggis Khan, meaning universal ruler. He believed he had a divine mission to bring justice to Earth and unite all nomads. Chinggis Khan then set his sights on China. In 1209, he attacked the Tangut Kingdom in northeastern China. Though the Mongols struggled as they lacked siege weapons, they eventually won. Next, he targeted the Qin Empire in 1211. By 1215, the Mongols captured Beijing, looted it, and took skilled captives. Going forward, the Mongols started using Chinese siege weapons to attack cities. Combined with the fact that the soldiers knew how to use the bow and arrow while riding on their horses from their early years of childhood, Chinggis Khan's terrifying war machine had no equal. After 1215, Chinggis Khan moved west. His generals quickly defeated the Kara-Kitai Kingdom in Central Asia. By 1218, his empire bordered the Khwarezmian Empire of Persia. When an envoy was sent to Persia, the Khwarezm Sultan killed him, an act akin to declaring war. By 1220, he had conquered key cities like Bukhara and Samarkand. Khwarezm fell apart, and Muhammad II died from exhaustion. Chinggis Khan's two most skilled generals, Jebei and Subadai, soon gained permission from Chinggis Khan to swing north into the Pontic steppe after subduing Persia. Each general had 2 men under their command, that being 10,000 soldiers. The two smashed through the Caucasus while they were on their way north in 1221. After passing the formidable mountains, the Mongols quickly encountered the Kipchaks. The Kipchaks then quickly pleaded for help from their bitter foes, the Rus. Our land they have taken, your land they'll come and take tomorrow. In this situation, only the staunchest lines of all available forces could have fended off the Mongol enemy. However, it was impossible for the Rus princes to cooperate to unify to defend themselves, as they were instead busy killing each other to gain more power. Nonetheless, when Prince Mstislav of Galicia called for a meeting of the Rus princes in Kiev, only 2 others joined him, both also named Mstislav, from Kiev and Chernigov. When the Mongols heard of their plan to fight, they sent a dire warning. We hear that you are sending an army against us, responding to Dubrovsky. But we have not attacked your lands or your towns, nor have we marched against you. We have come, sent by God, to make war not on you, but on our serfs and stable boys, the heathen Plovsky. Make peace with us. The Russian princes killed the envoys. Despite their efforts, the Russian forces were divided. The 3 Mstislavs could not work together. In the battle on the river Kalka in 1223, they were defeated. Mstislav of Kiev was captured and killed. However, the Mongols did not capitalize on their victory. They were thousands of miles from home, hopelessly exhausted. They returned to Mongolia, but not before attacking Volga, Bulgaria. While on a punitive expedition targeting the Tangut in 1227, Chinggis Khan fell from his horse and died a few days after. His son Ogedei was chosen as his successor in a Kurultai in 1228. In 1235, a Kurultai decided to restart the invasion of the Rus and Volga, Bulgaria. The western lands, including Rus, were given to Batu, Chinggis Khan's grandson, as a Ulus, an autonomous territory within the Mongol Empire. Since the defeat at Kalka, the Rus princes did not learn and kept fighting each other over Kiev. This left their forces tired and divided when Batu's forces crossed the Middle Volga in winter 1237. Batu reached Ryazan after nearly destroying Volga, Bulgaria. He demanded a tribute of 1/10 of Ryazan's armed men, weapons, and wealth. The Prince of Ryazan, Yuri Igoryevich, refused and asked for help, but none came. Ryazan's army was defeated, and the city was destroyed. A force sent by Grand Prince Yuri II of Vladimir Suzdal was also defeated at the Sit River. Over the next 3 years, many other cities faced similar attacks. When they refused to give tribute, they were stormed, their people killed, and their buildings destroyed. In Vladimir, many were burned alive or killed. Suzdal faced a similar fate, with churches and monasteries plundered and burned, and people killed or taken captive. With the strongest parts of the Rus subdued, Batu moved to conquer the Kipchaks. Khan Khotan and 40,000 of his followers escaped to Hungary. Batu sent an ultimatum to King Bela IV of Hungary. I have heard that you have taken the Kipchak, who are my subjects, under your protection. I command you to send them away, for by taking them away from me, you have become my enemy. It is easier for them to flee than it is for your people. They live in tents, while you live in houses and cities. By 1240, Batu's army regained their strength and sought to punish Hungary for sheltering his enemy. Kiev, in the direct warpath of the Mongols, was invaded in December 1240. Though valiantly resisting, the city fell only after a few days. The Mongols destroyed the city. In 1246, 6 years after Kiev's fall, the Pope's emissary John of Plano Caprini described the destruction. They went against Russia and enacted a great massacre in the Russian land. They destroyed towns and fortresses and killed people. They besieged Kiev, which had been the capital of Russia, and after a long siege, they took it and killed the inhabitants of the city. For this reason, when we passed through that land, we found lying in the field countless heads and bones of dead people. For the city had been extremely large and very populous, whereas now it had been reduced to nothing. Barely 200 houses stand there, and those people are held in the harshest slavery. After taking control of Kiev, the Mongol army split into two groups. One went to Poland to secure a northern flank, winning a battle against the Poles and Germans at Liegnitz. The other, led by Batu and Subadai, attacked and slaughtered the Hungarians at Mohi in April 1241, decimating the Hungarian countryside right after. Batu's armies were already at the doorstep of the Holy Roman Empire when news of the great Khan Ogedei's death broke. Batu and the rest of the Mongols began their ride back to Mongolia to choose a new leader, sparing the rest of Europe from the wrath of the Mongol hordes. Part 3. Under Tartar Yoke. The sudden retreat back to Mongolia forced Batu to give up his conquest in Poland and Hungary, and instead solidify his grasp over the lands he conquered beforehand under the Golden Horde. Batu's land stretched from Nizhny Novgorod to the Caucasus Mountains, and from Siberia to the Prut River. The capital, Sarai, was near the Volga River, close to present-day Astrakhan. The Russian princes themselves became vassals of the Golden Horde. They had to travel to Sarai to bow before the Khan as a show of loyalty. In return, the Mongols allowed the princes to rule their lands. If they refused to submit, they faced deadly consequences. The princes now had to count their people in censuses, pay taxes, and provide soldiers. Tax collectors, Karpatskaki, collected these tributes and acted as walking reminders to the Russians of the horde's overlordship. In 1327, the city of Tver led an uprising against the Mongols, but it was crushed. This event started to change the Golden Horde's policy towards the Russians. The Beskaki system was costly and needed complex record-keeping. Throughout the 14th century, the Mongols replaced Beskaki with Darugi. Darugi were absentee administrators of the princes and advised the Khan on Russian matters. This changed and to reduce costs of administration. Envoys, Karposoli, replaced Beskaki in the field. They collected taxes and troops on behalf of the Darugi and communicated decisions from the Darugi to the Russian princes. This shift helped the Golden Horde keep control over Russia even during the crises of the late 14th and 15th centuries. Despite the control, Russia gained some benefits. The Mongols also ruled China, giving Russia direct trade links to the incredibly rich East. The civil wars plaguing the former Kievan Rus became rare. New roads, bridges, and a postal system called Yam were built, although they used forced Russian labor and helped strengthen Mongol control. By the mid-14th century, the Golden Horde began to relax its grip and allowed the Russian princes themselves to take over the roles of Daruki and Paskaki, allowing them to manage order, take censuses, taxes, and recruitment on their own, while still showing submission to Sarai. During the time of Mongol rule, some regions got stronger by taking advantage of others. This depended on their location and their leaders' skills. The two main areas were Galicia-Volhynia and Novgorod. These places benefited from being far from the Mongol steppes and were hard for them to attack because of the thick forests. Galicia and Volhynia had good soil and were near Poland and Hungary, making them great for trade with Europe. When the Mongols invaded, they sought help from Lithuania, which expanded east into weakened areas after the invasion. Lithuania profited from the trade and sold forest products like wax, honey, and furs. Galicia later became part of Poland. Before Grand Duke Gediminas, Lithuania followed a pagan religion based on war and sacrifices. Gediminas began to promote Christianity to attract immigrants and support from Christian powers like the Teutonic Knights. Lithuania welcomed both Catholic and Orthodox churches. From the 1340s, Lithuania allied with Tver and expanded, taking over regions like Bryansk, Chernihiv, Smolensk, and Kiev. When Poland's male line ended, Grand Duke Jogaila married the Polish queen and became King Władysław Jagiello, officially converting Lithuania to Catholicism. This led to the Union of Krylo in 1385, forming a union of Poland and Lithuania. By the early 15th century, Poland-Lithuania was Europe's largest state, stretching from the Ogra and Oka rivers to the Black Sea. The second region, Novgorod, known as Lord Novgorod the Great, was a major trade hub, largely spared from the Mongol invasions. In 1136, Novgorod declared independence from Kiev, electing its own leaders and deciding which prince to accept. The Council of Lords, elected by the people, governed the city. Novgorod's power came from trade, exporting goods like fur, honey, mead, and wax. By the 13th century, its main trade route was westward, where Swedes and the Hanseatic League had trading posts. During the Mongol invasions of 1237-40, Novgorod's location and the diplomatic skill of its prince, Alexander, kept it safe. No Mongol troops were stationed there, and no tax collectors came from the Golden Horde. Instead, Alexander agreed to pay a tribute for self-rule. Alexander also protected Novgorod's sovereignty from the encroaching Swedes and Teutons, ending their ambitions of taking over his republic. Alexander's actions allowed the Novgorod Republic to prosper, leading into the late 15th century. However, in the long run, neither Lithuania nor Novgorod would rise to unite Russia under one banner. Lithuania was blocked from expanding east by the Golden Horde. Novgorod lacked both military strength and will. So, the principality that would unite Russia had to come from within. In the early 1300s, Moscow unexpectedly became important among the Rus principalities. Once just a frontier outpost, Moscow began to rise after Alexander's death in 1263. After the Mongol invasion, the center of power in Russia moved from Kiev to the northeast towards Moscow, closer to the steppes. This shift is exemplified by Moscow's growth. By 1304, Moscow had taken over nearby regions, gaining control over the Moscow River and the fertile lands north of it. Meanwhile, Tver also grew and became a rival to Moscow. Located well for trade, Tver formed alliances with Novgorod and Lithuania. By the early 1300s, Moscow and Tver were the main contenders for recognition from the Golden Horde. Prince Ivan I secured the Horde's favor by restoring order in Tver during its 1327 uprising. After that, the Horde allowed Moscow to collect tribute independently, solidifying Moscow's power over the other principalities. Another factor in Moscow's growth was the Orthodox Church. The Mongols did not destroy the church and allowed it to exist with little interference. The church became a unifying force for the Russians. Its leader, the Metropolitan, held true authority over all of Russia and was independent from secular princes. In 1299, Russia's Metropolitan moved from Kiev to Vladimir and then to Moscow in 1322, further enhancing Moscow's status as a religious and political center. During Dmitry I's rule, Moscow strengthened its control of regions like Rostov, Suzdal, and Nizhny Novgorod. This growth boosted Moscow's access to northern forests and lakes at the expense of Novgorod. At the same time, the Golden Horde, dominant in Eurasia for over a century, began to weaken. The Horde was urbanizing, and it ruled over diverse territories, making it difficult to rule as nomads. Internal strife in the 1360s led to multiple rulers in Sarai and the emergence of independent factions. In 1380, Dmitry faced a rebellious Horde faction at Kulikovo Field, marking a significant but not decisive victory for Moscow. One general, Toktamish, took the throne at Sarai and reasserted Horde control, briefly sacking Moscow in 1382. Despite this, the battle at Kulikovo showed Moscow's potential to resist large Tatar armies. The Golden Horde continued to decline thanks to Timur's invasion in the 1390s. The Golden Horde started to fragment into several khanates, and by the early 15th century, Moscow's leadership in resisting Tatar dominance was established. Ivan III became the Grand Prince of Moscow in 1462. He was a skilled and ruthless leader focused on expanding Moscow's control. Through marriages, inheritance, pressure, or conquest, Moscow gained control over several more territories. The most important of these was Novgorod. Though still wealthy, it was politically weak. Its decline made it a target for Moscow. After defeating Novgorod's militia in 1471, Ivan III cautiously took control. Whereas all the power in Moscow was concentrated in the Grand Prince, the power of Novgorod was in the hands of its boyars and people. By 1478, he fully annexed Novgorod, symbolically smashing its Veche Bell and taking land to support his military. Moscow also faced threats from the south. In the 1460s, Akhmat Khan of the decaying Golden Horde tried to force Moscow to pay tribute. In 1480, Ivan III's army confronted Akhmat's forces at the Ugra River, leading to a standoff. After a field crossing by the Tatars, both armies withdrew. Though the standoff at the Ugra was not decisive, it nonetheless signified that Moscow was now emancipated from Tatar control. In 1502, the Golden Horde was taken over by the Crimean Tatars. Though the Tatars remained a threat for centuries, mounting occasional slave-gathering raids, they never again challenged Russia's sovereignty.